I'm a patient at a hospital that's been closed for the past 4 years. Part 1. I found this empty notebook in one of the rooms, and I stole a pencil from the secretary's desk. I need to let people know what is happening here at the Royal Vic. I'm hoping this reaches someone. At least someone will know. Or maybe just writing it down will make it real, because it doesn't feel real. I've been held against my will as a patient of the Royal Victoria Hospital for the past 4 years. The date of admission on my bracelet is June 7th, 2015. I should mention the Royal Victoria Hospital was closed since late April of the same year. Here's my story. I came to the emergency for stomach pains. They were pretty bad. I was falling over and seeing black spots every time the sharp, stabbing pain would happen to the right side of my abdomen. The pain wasn't constant, but definitely felt acute. My doctor wanted me to make sure it wasn't appendicitis, so she wrote me a note to take to the hospital. She actually called an ambulance for me because I was alone and didn't want me to fall and hit my head on the way. I asked the EMTs which hospital we were going to. They said the Royal Vic. I assumed they meant the new super hospital that had just recently opened, that replaced the Royal Victoria Hospital. All of the patients and staff were moved to the new location a few months prior. We arrived, and when I came out of the back of the truck on the gurney, I realized we were at the original location. I was about to say something to the EMTs, but pushed the gurney so hard that I fell onto my back. I had never been to this hospital before, or at least I don't remember being in this hospital. Technically I was born here, but obviously I have no recollection of the experience, and the first sensation I felt was disturbed. I felt disturbingly uncomfortable, and there weren't many people. I saw one doctor, a few nurses, maybe one guy was a janitor or something, but no patients. No patients in the emergency room was next to impossible in Montreal. It was always packed, no matter what time of day. It's the one drawback of free healthcare. Everyone uses it. They brought me to an observation room once we got in. I was waiting in the room for a while, and the pain was getting worse, so I decided to pop my head out to the corridor to see if anyone was coming, or maybe I had been forgotten about. "Excuse me?" I called out to a person wearing scrubs at the end of the hall. "When will I be seen?" "No idea. Not my department." He grabbed some hospital gowns and walked the other way. "The service here is fantastic. Definitely getting 5 stars on Yelp." I sat back down on the gurney. The sharp pain started up again. It was excruciating. I got into the fetal position and started to scream, like women do when they feel their contractions during labor. The black spots were getting bigger. When the pain stopped, I felt exhausted. I grabbed some gowns that were on a chair and used them as blankets. The room was really cold. At some point, I fell asleep, or passed out, not sure which one. I was woken up by my stomach. I started screaming again, holding my side, clenching every muscle I had, waiting for the pain to stop. Once it did, my whole body relaxed, and I felt some relief. Reality hit me. I was in a hospital, waiting to be evaluated. My eyes opened, and I shot up abruptly. I wasn't in the same room, and I wasn't wearing my clothes. I had on a hospital gown and an intake bracelet. I looked around the room. It was a standard hospital room, but not an emergency. I looked out the window. I was at least 3 floors up. It was already nighttime. The floors were so cold, and I didn't have my shoes, or even crappy paper slippers to put on my feet. I went out of the room and walked towards the reception desk at the end of the hall. An older lady with glasses and a chain was sitting there, doing a Sudoku. "Hello?" She looked up at me and said, "Yes, can I help you?" This is really weird. I was admitted to emergency, and I was waiting for triage, but I guess I passed out or something. I just woke up a few minutes ago. I don't know which area I've been admitted to, or if I've seen a doctor. Can you help? Sure, just let me get your file. Can I see your bracelet? I showed her my wrist. Oh yes, Miss Taylor. You have been admitted for further testing. Testing for what? Do they have an idea for what's causing the pain? I have no idea. That's not my department. Oh, okay. Can I speak to my assigned doctor then? Not at the moment. He's occupied with other patients. Please wait for him in your room. He should be there shortly. Thanks for nothing. I went towards the direction of my room, but stopped when I noticed something. I didn't hear or see anyone else in the area of the hospital. I turned back to the secretary and asked her, "What department is this?" Observation. She didn't even bother looking up. I decided not to go back to my room, but try to find a way to a phone. This place was too creepy for my liking, and I had no intention of staying here overnight. I'd call a friend to come pick me up. Maybe find my way back to emergency. It would have been easier to disappear there. I passed my room and kept going. I wanted to reach the stairwell. As I was about to reach the door for the stairs at the end of the hall, the pain came back. I fell to my knees, unable to hold back a scream. The black spot showed up again. I fell to the ground, choosing the fetal position, and closed my eyes. I heard a few footsteps coming close to me. Why is she out of bed? I don't know, doctor. I told her to go back to her room, but I guess she woke up? We'll have to restrain her to make sure this doesn't happen again. Yes, doctor. I felt a slight sting in my neck. Tried to open my eyes but failed. I became unconscious. It looks like the full moon is out. I tell the time by lunar cycles now. I don't think I'm ever leaving this place. Hopefully my story gets out. I'll pick up where I left off. I woke up again, in the same room. Only this time I was strapped to the hospital bed. I started to thrash around and yelled out, "Help me! Help me! Anyone!" A doctor came into the room. An older man, with glasses and a mischievous smile. "Mrs. Taylor, good to see that you're awake." The memory of the needle to my neck came to me. Why? You're the one that made me unconscious. He smiled, humoring me. Are you feeling any pain in your stomach? I thought about it. No, nothing at all. Did you fix it? He didn't respond. He was holding a clipboard, writing something. Listen, I know that you can't hold me against my will. I have rights and... And what, Mrs. Taylor? The way I see it, you cannot possibly do anything in this situation. You're the one strapped to a bed, after all. He was right. I was completely stuck. What do you want with me? That's none of your concern at this moment. No. What's more pressing is a matter of trust. Can I trust you to stay on this floor, Mrs. Taylor? What? Why? I'll put it simply. If you promise not to leave this floor, I'll unfasten those harnesses, and you'll be free to move around at your leisure. If I can't trust you, unfortunately, I will leave you as you are, and you will become a perfect candidate for some of the more invasive experiments. I couldn't believe what was happening. I was stuck here for God knows what reason, and I had just found out that I would be used for experiments, invasive or otherwise. I promise I won't leave this floor. I had the tone of a child after being scolded. Good. We'll get a nurse in here to take care of you. He scribbled a few more things on the clipboard and left. Lying in the bed unable to move had got me thinking that I was in a hostage situation. The more people cooperated and followed along with their captors, the more trust the captors gave them. and in some cases, they were able to escape because of it. This was my plan, gain enough trust to walk out the front door. Fortunately, I wasn't a stranger to manipulation and lying. I had been known to be able to get anything I set my eyes on, and in some cases, I had to play dirty, and my life was never at stake. The nurse finally came after what felt like an eternity to remove the straps. "Alright, just remember not to leave this floor, no matter how tempting." She turned to leave, and I mimicked her face. I saw there were a pair of Crocs next to the bed. At least they're courteous enough to provide footwear. When I got out of the room, I decided to walk down the really long corridor after the secretary's desk. The same woman was sitting there, still playing Sudoku. I continued on past her. What I walked through was straight out of a horror film. Some lights were burnt out, while others flickered. The first dozen rooms weren't holding any patients. Some had stacks of mattresses, others were loaded with equipment, and some were completely bare. I felt like I was being watched, like someone or something was following me. I heard static coming from a room at the end of the hall. I saw light flickering. I walked in and I saw it was an old TV box turned on. I turned the dial off. Yeah, they only let us watch the snow show here. I jumped and whipped around to see someone sitting on the bed. A guy, looked like he was around my age, was sitting on a bed in the corner. "Sorry, didn't mean to scare you." He stood up. "I'm Frank." He offered me his hand. "Anna." We shook. He did so with great enthusiasm. "Great to meet you. It's been a while since anyone else was on my floor. At least now I have someone to talk to and hang out with and wait, stop. Can you please explain to me what the fuck is going on?" His excitement left his face. "Why are we here? Isn't this hospital closed? And where are the people that used to be on this floor with you? What type of experiments was the doctor talking about?" "Oh, yeah, right. It makes sense that you're new. You probably haven't even been evaluated yet." "What are you talking about?" I was so confused, but grateful I found someone in the same circumstance that I was. "Okay, I'll start from the beginning. You know the Royal Vic was a teaching hospital connected to McGill, right?" "Well, yeah, of course." "Okay, so what if I told you that some research done here was never discussed publicly, and the reason it closed and moved its patients to the Glen was because certain doctors wanted more space and freedom to conduct their experiments?" "What are you talking about? That's insane. This is or was a publicly funded hospital. Questionable experiments wouldn't be allowed. It would be found out. Not if they come close to finding cures." "Cures? For what?" "Cancer, diabetes, Alzheimer's, all the big ones." Let me get this straight. Because these doctors might be able to find cures to the most common ailments in today's society, people will look the other way to holding people captive and being experimented on? Something like that. Yeah. No, there's no way. We're Canadians, for Christ's sake. We're all about human rights. Yeah, well, c'est la vie. I couldn't believe it. Something so sinister happening right under our noses for so long. I looked up at Frank. "How long have you been here?" "Me? No idea. Lost count after a few experiments. My memory isn't that reliable lately." He looked down at his feet, embarrassed to admit it. "What have they done to you?" "Haven't a clue. They usually knock you out. They'll only keep you awake if you've been acting out, and the pain's too much for you to actually pay attention anyways, so I seriously suggest against it." Poor guy. He looked like an excited but scared puppy. Happy to see new people, but still terrified of the world. "Attention, all patients, please report to the cafeteria for lunch." The voice came from the intercom system. I looked out the window, then at Frank, very confused. "How can it be lunch? It's dark out." "Yeah, it's always dark outside." I'll leave the story here for now. I'm getting tired, and my eyes can barely stay open. I need to hide the notebook while I'm still trying to stay awake, so they won't find it. Keeping reality straight hasn't been easy recently. Not really sure what they're doing to me, but the writing is helping. My head hurts so much right now. I don't even remember coming back to my room. I can't remember much of the past couple of days. Has it been a couple of days? I need to keep my thoughts straight. Now, where was I? Frank showed me where the cafeteria was. There was a passageway behind the secretary's station that brought us to another part of the floor. I couldn't understand the layout. It was like a huge maze back there. Small hallways leading to rooms and other hallways. And everything looked deserted. I let Frank tell me all about what I was seeing. And this is where you'll have a group therapy. And here's sometimes where they do testing. But other times it's over there. And I've woken up in this room a few times. And this... Wait, hold on. You just sometimes wake up in places you can't remember? I had to stop and try to analyze what was being told to me. Yeah, and usually with a headache. You get used to it. We continued to walk. And here's the cafeteria. Frank pushed through the 2 doors and presented the room like it was something spectacular, with arms opened, showcasing it. The cafeteria looked like a hospital cafeteria, only dirtier than usual, and almost empty. There was a man standing with his face in the corner, giggling to himself. There was a girl who couldn't have been older than 20, sitting at one of the tables, looking down at her hospital gown. Her eyes looked glazed over, and she wasn't blinking. There was a total of 8 other patients. They all looked either insane or like a vegetable. Frank looked the sanest of them all, and he didn't look too sane. His eyes were always so wide open, and he had a couple of twitches. Let me introduce you to everyone. This is Sally. She doesn't talk much. Sally was the girl at the table. In the corner is Bob. We don't actually know his name. Best to stay away from him. Over there is Edith. He pointed to an elderly lady. She has outbursts that have been proven to be deadly. The guy sitting over there and the girl twirling in circles are harmless. They're June and Billy. They're harmless, but definitely boring company. The 2 guys playing the card game over there is Cody and Noel. I look at 2 of the guys again, more closely. Their eyes were not as glazed as I first assumed. What's their story? They're cool. They let me play with them once in a while. Let me introduce you. Frank grabbed my arm and dragged me over to them. Guys, this is Anna. She's new. I'm showing her around. They both looked up at me and said nothing, and went back to playing their game. Nice to meet you too, assholes. Come on. I walked away from where Cody and Noel were playing. They don't seem too welcoming. Hey, Frank, do you know why it's always dark outside? A bell sound rang over the intercom. Everyone started walking towards the kitchen area. Frank ran to the front of the line. A woman wearing a nurse's outfit was standing in the window. She handed out the trays of food. Why is a nurse handing out the food? They have limited staff here. I turned around to see Noel and Cody behind me. Sorry, I had the same face when I saw her passing out food for the first time, Noel explained. What? You're talking to me now? The sarcasm came out strong. Yeah, we wanted to wait until Frank wasn't around. What? Frank? Really? He seems harmless. He is. It's just that... Cody looked in Frank's direction. They have a way of getting into his head. What does that even mean? What the fuck is going on here? I tried to whisper, but I was so excited that I might actually find out what was going on. And why is it always dark? Relax. Calm down. We'll talk soon. Noel passed me in the line. I wish I could tell you we have real answers for you, but we don't. Just a survival guide. Cody had such a sadness in his eyes. He looked really tired. The dark rings under his eyes were very noticeable. How long have you been here? No idea. Feels like years, but I haven't aged a day. I got to the window where the nurse passed me a tray. I looked down and felt a bile coming up from my stomach. You expect me to eat that? It looked like oatmeal that was made last week, and it smelt spoiled. Are we gonna have a problem? She smiled at me with sinister eyes. Nope, she's going to eat. Thank you. Cody grabbed his tray and shuffled me towards a table where Noel was already sitting at. Frank waved at me and motioned for me to sit next to him. I mouthed, "Later." He dropped his head with disappointment. Maybe I should go sit with him, I thought. But then I remembered where I was, and that I had an opportunity to get some answers from these two guys. I sat down. Okay, so what's happening? We have no idea. I was brought here by ambulance when I broke my ankle falling on some ice. Noel showed up a few months after by ambulance, when he went into anaphylactic shock from a bee sting. How long ago? Don't know. Just know the date of intake. Noel motioned to his hospital bracelet. Can I see? Hold up. We'll show you ours if you show us yours. They both looked at me. I handed them my arm freely. They both looked puzzled. No way. It can't be. What? I pulled my arm back and looked at the bracelet. I didn't understand what was so weird about June 5th, 2015. They both showed me their arms. I looked at the dates on their bracelets. It didn't make any sense. Cody's admission date was September 17, 2018, and Noel's was January 8, 2019. I almost forgot about Cody and Noel. I need to keep them straight in my head. They will not take my memories from me. They won't. No matter how much they try, this notebook will save me from them. They've been watching me so closely lately. I didn't want them to find my notebook, so I haven't written in a while. But it looks like their eyes are now off of me for the moment. It seems safe, for now. How is that possible? I asked Cody and Noel. You said you've been here for a while. This place keeps throwing curveballs, just when you think you're starting to understand. Noel looked a little frustrated. But you remember it being 2018 and 2019? Well, yeah, obviously. A bell sounds, and I realized I hadn't even touched my food. Don't worry, give me your tray. Cody held his hand out. I gave it to him, and everyone walked out of the cafeteria. I followed where everyone was going, staying close to Cody and Noel, still wanting some answers. Anna, you're gonna have so much fun. It's rec time. Frank came up behind me, hopping along like a child going to recess. We came into the common room. There was a TV on, but only showed static. A pool table was in the corner, without any balls or cues. There was also a ping pong table without a net, and I couldn't see any paddles or balls anywhere. There were couches all over, tables and chairs as well. All the other patients went to what seemed to be designated places. Cody and Noel sat in two chairs across from one another, with a table in the middle, and started playing cards. I was about to go towards them, but Frank grabbed my shoulder. Come, Anna, come play with me. He took my hand and brought me to the pool table. There are no balls or cues. How do you want me to play? The balls and cues are in your mind, Frank said as he pointed to his head. Yeah, right. And you expect me to see these things if I just pretend they are there? Yeah, that's how things work. Just how Cody and Noel think about having cards to play with. I looked over at the cards Noel and Cody were playing with. They were there, plain as the eye could see. Thanks, Frank. Maybe we'll play tomorrow. I pulled up a chair next to Cody. You know, Frank just said the funniest thing to me. He said that those cards you're playing with aren't actually real. Cody and Noel stopped playing and looked at each other. He's right. What are you talking about? I see them right. I looked down at the cards I had just been seeing on the table, and there was nothing. I jumped back. What the fuck? Calm down. Don't give yourself any attention right now. Cody pulled my back in. I know this is messed up, but you do not want them to get involved. Them? Who's them? And what just happened? Anna, seriously, keep your voice down. Noel hushed at me. But I couldn't take any more of this insanity. No, I will not keep my voice down. Where the fuck did the cards go? And how did they get into Frank's head? And why are we in a closed down hospital? And how are you guys from the future that have been here longer than me? And why the fuck is it always dark outside? In my last sentence, an alarm went off. All the patients hit the floor, like they do in jail when the alarms sound. I refused. I was fed up and ready for answers. 2 orderlies, who were both easily over 6 feet, came into the room with a young female nurse in between them. Mrs. Taylor, looks like we're having a problem. She smiled and pulled out a giant needle. The 3 of them started walking in my direction. Cody jumped. Nurse Maddox, she's fine. She's new and she's just... The orderly on the left smacked him so hard he fell to the ground. You can't do that, and you can't keep me here. I tried to sound assertive, but all that came out was fear, my voice shaking so much. I was barely able to get the words out. Now, Mrs. Taylor, you don't really believe that, do you? The 2 men grabbed each of my arms and dragged me out of the rec room. I was struggling, wiggling, and thrashing around until one of the orderlies punched me right in the nose. I saw stars and tasted blood drip into my mouth. You can't do this, I whimpered. But they were doing. I looked up to see where we were going. It looked like the room Frank said testing was done. I started to panic, trying to get out of their hold again. Wait, no, please don't. They weren't listening to me. They forcefully pinned me onto the bed and strapped me in tight. What are you gonna do to me? Tears left my eyes as I asked the nurse. I can promise you, Miss Taylor, nothing good. She stabbed my neck with the syringe. I thought I was going to be unconscious, but I wasn't. I just became paralyzed. I wasn't able to move or speak, but I was awake, and I still felt the straps on my skin. What are they gonna do? I felt so powerless in that moment. I was still able to cry because I felt the tears fall on my cheeks. They started by burning the bottoms of my feet with what felt like a cigarette, but I couldn't see what they were actually using. They then took skin samples from my inner thighs and showed me every piece they took. Then they did something to my head. I don't know what they did, but it felt like they were squeezing it. The pain became so great, I finally passed out. That was the first experiment they did to me. I have no idea how this experiment helped with any research. I don't think it does. It felt more like a punishment. I don't know why they do the things they do, but they can keep doing it. They're not gonna get what they want, my mind. I won't give up. It's getting harder and harder to keep my timeline straight. I can't remember what came first and what followed. This notebook has become a lifesaver, more like a sanity saver. If I forget things, if I can look back, and I can trust only myself with what's true and what's not, It's not that the others are purposely lying to me. They just don't know what they're saying sometimes. Thoughts are put into their heads, and they start to believe them. It's sometimes hard not to. I woke up in the room I woke up in the first time. I wasn't strapped in, at least. I tried to get up, but as soon as I lifted my head, excruciating pain came from what felt like the inside of my brain. I instinctively put my hand on my head and felt a bandage. What the fuck? I rolled off the bed onto my feet and stumbled across to the bathroom area. I looked in the mirror above the sink and saw my head was wrapped in gauze. Fear trickled down my body. What did they do to me? Don't worry, from what I heard, they couldn't get in. I turned to see Cody standing in the doorway. Get in what? Your head. This is good news. Normally, if they don't get in the first time, they won't try again. Too complicated or something. Well, that's a real... As I was saying my sarcastic remark, nausea surrounded me. My tongue started to feel heavy, and I knew I needed to stick my head in the toilet if I didn't want a mess all over me. I made it in time and began to vomit profusely. Cody held my hair back. When I was finished, he handed me a glass of water. Thank you. Yeah, it happens to all of us. I was grateful for Cody at that moment. He reminded me that humanity still existed, even in this fucked up hospital. Attention to all patients. Please report to the group therapy room. Cody gestured me on. Come on, I'll show you where it is. I was still feeling unstable on my feet, with a pounding headache, and most likely dehydration. So Cody held me around the waist. We were the last to arrive. The chairs were placed in a circle. The room had huge windows, and once again, it was dark outside. Cody whispered in my ear, "Don't flinch, and try not to get called on." I looked at him with a puzzled face. He mouthed back, "Trust me." I sat down in the closest available chair. "Patients, please take a seat." It was a nurse who injected me earlier. It was not hard to kill her with my bare hands in that moment. The only thing that was holding me back was my excruciating headache. When I moved too quickly, I would get dizzy. The couple of people who were standing or twirling around found a chair and sat down. "Thank you. Let's begin today's group." She looked around the room. I made sure not to make eye contact. "Cody, Noel, stand up." They sighed, but obeyed. "Noel, punch Cody in the face." "What?" Noel looked at Cody, apologizing with his eyes, and socked him in the jaw. I was about to scream and jump, but I remembered what Cody said. Don't flinch. I grabbed the sides of my chair for stability and looked in the direction of Noel and Cody, but focused on the wall behind them, so I wouldn't see what was going to happen next. Again, but harder this time. Noel hesitated. "Come on now, let's not waste anyone's time." Noel punched Cody again, but on the other side. "Very good. You two may sit down now." Noel sat down quickly. Cody, holding his face, spat some blood on the floor and went back to his seat. Nurse Maddox began looking at all 10 of us with a twisted smile. Does she get off on this shit? Does pain make her feel good? I started wondering again why they would possibly need 10 skin samples from my leg. "Frank." He stood up, twitching away. Even Frank had some fear in his face. "Choose." "Choose what?" "Please, Nurse Maddox, not today," Frank pleaded. "Choose." Frank moaned, grabbed the man he called Bob, and threw him across the room. I couldn't help but gasp. Frank was tall but very lanky. Definitely didn't look strong. Bob was middle-aged and overweight. Frank threw him as if he were as light as a pillow. Cody eyed me to calm down, and I tried, but it was too late. I had been noticed. "Ah, Mrs. Taylor, stand up." I did slowly. My legs were shaking. "Go ahead, Frank," she said with a smirk. "I'm sorry, Anna," Frank said as he walked towards me. Behind him, Bob got up from where he landed and sprinted to Frank, jumped on his back, and bit Frank between his neck and shoulder. Frank screamed, grabbed Bob off his back, and threw him again. Bob got up and attempted to pounce on Frank again. Just then, Edith got up and punched Billy in the stomach. June got up from her seat and started twirling in the corner. Cody and Noelle backed their chairs up against the wall. I was still standing and decided to go against the wall as well. I looked to Nurse Maddox, who was laughing and slapping her knee. There was screaming and shouting and punching and kicking. I looked back at the violence and saw Billy smashing Edith's head on the ground so hard there was blood, a lot of blood, and her head no longer looked like a head. I felt bile coming up from my stomach. It was horrendous. Everyone went quiet once they noticed what was happening in the middle of the circle. "Okay, thank you everyone. This has been a very productive session. You may go to the common room for recreation now." "And Mrs. Taylor?" She looked directly at me now. I turned my head to face her. "I hope you learned something today." Nurse Maddox stood up and left. Cody and Noelle approached me. I was paralyzed by what I just saw. I couldn't speak or move. "You did great. Don't worry." "Yeah, let's just go to the common room, okay?" Cody attempted to comfort me. I nodded my head and let them both guide me to our next destination. Before leaving, I took one last look at Edith's body lying on the floor, surrounded by her own blood. It was motionless. We sat down and started playing cards. How can I see these cards if they don't really exist? I had so many questions, but I felt I wanted to start with an easy one. We're not positive, but we think it's one of the medications they give us when we get here that makes us hallucinate objects. "What medication? I don't remember getting any medication." "You wouldn't. How many times have you been knocked out? And each time it happens, you don't know for exactly how long. You've been in this hospital for almost 4 years already, but have only been visible to the rest of us for a couple of cycles." "Cycles?" "It's what we call days, since, there's no sun," Cody explained, looking in the direction of the windows. "Right, and how is that?" "Yeah, again, we don't know for certain, but we think it's another experiment, seeing how long humans can survive without sunlight." "Okay, but how did they make the sun disappear? Is it another illusion?" "Don't know." Noah looked down at his shoes. "Look, we don't have all the answers. And most of what we do know is actually only assumptions and educated guesses. We just want to survive, and we've learned how to stay under the radar. Well, most of the time." He looked at Cody. "What?" I didn't understand. "He's talking about when I jumped in front of Nurse Maddox, when you were having a freakout." "Oh, yeah, and because of that I got to punch you in the face twice. Now that I think of it, it was kind of what I wanted to do in that moment." We all thought the same thing. Did they somehow know what Noelle was thinking? I had an idea. "Hey Frank, come here." I motioned with my hand. "Hey Anna, want to play pool with me?" He had his happy, energetic demeanor again. "Maybe later. Listen, did you ever think about hurting Bob before group today?" "Yeah, earlier, when he was sitting in the seat in front of the TV. It was my turn to watch the snow show, but he wasn't moving. I wanted to take him and throw him across the room, but then I thought that was mean. So I went to talk to Sally, because she's a great listener and never interrupts." "Oh shit." Cody's eyes were wide and full of dread. "They can hear our thoughts?" "Well, yeah, but at least I get to hear theirs," Frank boasted while pointing to his head. He walked away and played pool by himself. We sat in silence for a few moments, digesting what we had just found out. I broke the silence. Do you really think we've been here for 4 years? There's nothing to prove otherwise. What do you think happened to me during that time? What did they do to me? Noel shook his head. Not a clue, and I'm sorry to say this, but probably nothing good. I thought about all the terrible things that could be done in 4 years' time. I came to a decision. Guys, I know you've probably said this already and heard it a million times, but I'm getting out of here. They both chuckled. No, I'm serious. Okay, Cody humored me. You're getting out. How? All we need to do is figure out how to get to the first floor. Noel perked up. We? What do you mean, we? Of course, we. Are you telling me you'd rather be a lab rat for the rest of your life than die trying to escape? It sounds bad when you say it like that. She's right, man. We have nothing to lose but our shitty lives in this shitty situation. Cody motioned to the room and the people in it. Cody and Noel both nodded in agreement. Okay, so say we get to the first floor. How does that guarantee an escape? Let's start with getting to the first floor. My eyes are tired. I can barely keep them open. It's weird because I think I just woke up from sleeping. I can't remember. Maybe I should just go sleep for now. I'll write more when I'm rested. My head's clear now. I don't know how long I was in that haze, but I'm better now. They were trying to make me forget, because I know too much. They thought they could just rip stuff out of my memory, but they have no idea who they're messing with. For a while, it was all about information for me. I had to learn more about the day-to-day, or rather cycle-to-cycle, that goes on in this place. I needed to memorize the layout of floor 3. Cody and Noel knew most of it, but I felt I needed to map it out in my own head, just in case. Each cycle went as followed. We woke up in our beds, every time. We were called for breakfast, where we were served the same slop every time for all 3 meals. But we also get our meds at the same time. After breakfast, we have group therapy, and after a couple of sessions, I figured out what was going on. Every time someone had a strong negative emotion, in other words, anger, depression, anxiety, envy, shame, etc., at some point, nurse sadist would call them out and make them act upon it. So there was good news there. They could only hear thoughts derived from those types of emotions. Group was followed by either being the experiment subject of the day or quiet time. Basically, if they weren't inflicting pain on you, you were free to roam the halls. Noel gave himself the task to try to get to know the other orderlies better and see if there was anyone we could trust or use. Because of this, Cody and I spent a lot of time together. He and I roamed the halls, mapping the floor plan, scouting possible exit and backup exit points. About what we were like before the Royal Vic, what our lives were like, what our passions were, what our favorite restaurant was. Walking the halls with Cody made me feel like things were normal, as if we weren't trapped in a hospital, but more like we just started dating. Only, we would sometimes hear someone screaming in the background, or Frank would start hassling us to play or talk with him. As more and more cycles passed, I became more and more eager for quiet time with Cody. I was pretty sure the feeling was mutual. Cody would usually wait for me outside the group therapy room and take my hand as I passed the threshold of the doorway. It was weird. I would never have imagined developing feelings for anyone when I woke up in this hospital. But this, I guess you could call it a relationship, was the most real relationship I had ever been in. We were dead honest with each other, no games, no fear of exposing parts of ourselves. We saw each other at our weakest, when we would come to after an experiment. We became so vulnerable with one another, and because of it, I felt safe with him. In a way, Cody was not only giving me hope that we would leave this place, but he was also giving me the reason to be happy in spite of our situation. Lunch would be called after quiet time, and afterwards was recreational time. I decided to accept the delusions found in the common room, and played imaginary pool and ping pong with Frank, when Frank was there. I discovered something weird about the TV. If you sat in the chair directly in front of it, you would see things. The static would start to turn into familiar shapes. Kind of like when you take mushrooms, or when you take too much ecstasy. But once I decided to keep staring, enjoying the trip, and I started to see family members, friends, even coworkers that I wasn't even close to, living their lives. They were driving to work, or getting a coffee at Tim's. My dog was in someone else's backyard that I didn't recognize. He seemed happy, running around. It looked like the world was still going on, with no idea what was happening to us. It was disturbing to watch. After rec, we would be told to stay in our rooms until supper. It was suggested to take this time to clean ourselves, as each room had a full bathroom in it. This was the best time for me to write. I would take my shower, but kept the water running after I was done. We wouldn't be bothered for what felt like an hour. I never counted the time, and there were no clocks to be found anywhere. But it was a good assumption. Supper would follow, and we were once again given quiet time, or we would have time with the doctor. During this quiet time, I would never remember going to my room and falling asleep. But at the beginning of every cycle, I would wake up in my room, even if the last thing I would remember would be walking the halls with Cody. I would wake up in my bed, and waking up wasn't really pleasant. I would always wake up in a panic, hyperventilating, because I experienced what the doctor would call sleep paralysis. I had experienced it a few times before in my early 20s. I just never knew it was actually a condition. Basically, I would wake up to my body being completely paralyzed for a few seconds that felt like forever. I wouldn't be able to move. My mind would conclude that because I wasn't able to move, I couldn't breathe either. When I would finally regain motor function, I would be gasping for air. It happened every time I woke up. It was absolutely terrifying. I spoke about it with Cody and Noel, and they said that they experienced the same thing. We assumed the doctor was somehow inducing this response. I had been experimented every other cycle. Cody was on the same days as me. Noel and Frank were on opposite days. Sometimes it would be torturous. Other times I wouldn't remember a thing. Believe it or not, I was getting used to it. I knew it would only last for a period of time. I started to see patterns, and began seeing how this place ran. There was a total of 4 nurses, 6 orderlies, 1 secretary, and only 1 doctor that was seen. I believe there were more who chose to only observe us, like lab rats, through the cameras. There were a lot of cameras. Joe doesn't seem to care about his job. He's constantly leaving his post to do God knows what in the bathroom for a good 15 minutes. So if we need to get to the door you guys found, it will need to be him at the post in that area. We 3 were playing cards in the common room. Noel was giving us the rundown of all the orderlies. All the other ones are like soldiers at their posts, but I think your backup emergency staircase is better. Cody and I decided which 2 exits were best. Why? They both have the same amount of risk and distance between them and orderly posts. Yeah, but I was taking a look at the cameras and caught something maybe you guys were too busy to notice. Noel gave us a smile. He was right. We were pretty much inseparable the past couple of cycles. Okay, smartass, what did we miss? As he asked Noel, Cody lightly punched his shoulder. Noel laughed. Hey, don't hate because I'm smarter than you, okay?
But seriously now, the cameras in this room have a red blinking light on top of them, right? We both were turning our heads to look, but Noel stopped us. No, not so obviously. Just take a look later. While scoping out one of the orderlies, I noticed that the camera in the hallway close to the secretary's station wasn't blinking. I started noticing that while the important cameras, like the one in the cafeteria, the one in the group, are all blinking, but in certain hallways and corners, there are no blinking lights.
Shit, this is great news.
I couldn't help but show my excitement. I hadn't told them this, but I had no idea how we were going to avoid the cameras. Unfortunately, it looked like my excitement caught someone's attention. The siren went off and we all hit the floor. I was facing the windows, so I didn't see who was coming to get me. Even though the siren was going off, I could still hear Nurse's Cuntalot's heels clicking every time she walked. I grinded my teeth as she approached my side. I half expected her to step on my spine, but to my surprise, she continued walking. She stopped in front of Sally. What the hell could Sally have done to deserve an alarm sounding off? You think you're funny, don't you, Sally? She spoke condescendingly. But there was a slight shake in her voice. What could Sally have done to make her scared? Sally didn't move. Her eyes were not moving, not looking up. She looked completely catatonic. Don't play this game with me, Sally. Nurse Maddox was trying to use the hushed voice, but she was way too angry to speak quietly. She sighed and signaled the two orderlies. I turned my head to see if Cody and Noel knew what the hell was going on. They looked just as confused as I was. I turned my head to the other side to see if any of the other patients seemed to understand. Frank had guilt written all over his face. The two orderlies took Sally's arms and dragged her out of the common room. She didn't make one sound the whole time. Go to your rooms early, Nurse Maddox ordered us. We got up and started making our ways to our room. We all walked in silence, too terrified to get noticed. In the hallway, I walked quickly to catch up with Frank. Hey, Frank, what the hell happened back there? It's all my fault, Anna. Sally was just protecting me, but I told her not to. Frank, Sally doesn't talk. Not with her mouth, but we're able to hear each other in our heads, you know? How could that be possible? I thought. But then I remembered where I was. Okay, then what was she trying to protect you from? Them. She didn't want them in my head anymore. She said they were hurting me and I didn't deserve it. So she stopped them from getting in. How? No idea. She just did. Frank turned and went down the hall to his room. As I was getting to my door, Cody ran right past me and went inside my room. I looked around. No one saw I went into my room and shut the door. What are you? The cameras in your hallway aren't blinking. Oh, okay. So Frank knows something. Cody didn't waste any time. He started to kiss me, and I reciprocated. It had been a long time coming, with a lot of build-up, tension between us. Once we started, we couldn't stop. It was wonderful. Once again, Cody brought me back to feeling like a normal human again. I guess sex does that. And they tried to take it away. Well, guess again. I remember everything, and no matter how many drugs they shove in my veins, they will not take it away from me. My thoughts and memories will not leave my mind. They'll have to kill me first. I keep writing, hoping it will make a difference. Does it make a difference? Does putting my memories on paper remove them from my mind? Does it even matter? Do I matter? Stop it, Anna. Yes, I matter. My story matters. Cody left discreetly after we finished, and I told him about what Frank told me. At dinner time, we updated Noel. Guys,
I don't think I can help you anymore. Noel had been acting strange. He was looking down at the ground, unable to make eye contact with us, and his voice was different. What's going on, man? Cody shook his shoulders, trying to shake him out of the weird state he was in. Noel softly said, "They got in." Cody and I looked at one another in horror. Wait, do they know? I was terrified that our entire plan would be in the drain, and we would have to start over. Or worse, give up on the idea entirely. I don't think so. They weren't looking for it. But seriously, guys, I'm sorry. It's better that I don't hang out with you. Trust me, I'm sorry. He took his tray and went to sit with Frank. I thought you said we're safe because they couldn't get in the first time. Cody shook his head. Yeah, that's what I thought. I guess they learned a new way. What are we gonna do? What if they get to us? I started to panic. I felt the walls closing in on me. I felt like I would never get out of here. Calm down, don't worry. We'll figure something out. We may just have to work faster than we originally planned. How fast? Like in 2 cycles' time, fast. We finished our dinner, and as we were leaving to scope the halls again, the doctor stopped us. Mrs. Taylor, Mr. Kent, nice to see you two making friends. Mrs. Taylor, I will see you in my office in, let's say, 5 minutes. Yes, doctor. He gave a crooked smile to Cody and walked away. Shit, what do I do? We started walking down the hall. Do what about what? Cody, he knows. He has to know. Didn't you see the way he looked at us? I saw nothing. And you know nothing, Anna. They're not in your head. Yet. Cody pulled me into a dark corner we were passing. He quickly looked at the camera. No light. Anna, get your head in the game. I had lost hope before you got here. I accepted the fact that I was going to end up dying here, one way or another. Then you put the fire back in me, and promised me we were going to get out of here. Don't lose faith, not now. As Cody said the last sentence, Sally passed by, looking even more out of it than usual. Seeing her got me out of my head. I composed myself and focused on our plan. Right, in 2 cycles' time then. He smiled, stole a quick kiss, and we walked together to the doctor's office. Getting to the doctor's office always puts me on edge. It was on the complete opposite side of the floor than the cafeteria and common room, and the whole way there, all of the rooms had been deserted and unused. It also gave me a disturbing feeling in the pit of my stomach. I could see from Cody's face that he was getting the same feeling. We walked in uncomfortable silence until we reached the door. He gave me a wink and walked back. As I opened the door, the doctor was looking very intently at some papers in front of him. I coughed for him to notice me. Mrs. Taylor, have a seat. I sat down on the chair he gestured at. He put the papers he was looking at away in a folder and opened another. Now, let's see here. Oh, yes, I see you have adapted to your new setting well. I nodded. This guy was so creepy, and I didn't understand exactly why he was acting like he had a patient-doctor type relationship. He did things to me, put drugs inside my body, and used me as a lab rat. And your sleep paralysis. I tilted my head confused. Terrible. Why do you ask? No reason. Now, Mrs. Taylor. He got off his chair and leaned on his desk, right in front of me. We are going to try something new with you. It seems you are a perfect candidate for a new experiment. Experiment for what? It's none of your concern. Now just stay right here while I prepare. Prepare for what? Wait, I don't want to do this. I don't want to be a part of it. Now, Mrs. Taylor, calm down. He opened the door and 2 orderlies came in. Each one held me down by my shoulders. This will be quite quick. Please, please don't. I was begging for mercy, even though I knew my pleas would go unanswered. The doctor returned with latex gloves on his hands and a giant syringe. Now, hold still. You don't want me missing, do you? He advanced towards me and shoved the needle into the side of my neck. It was very painful. I let out a yelp. Good. The serum should take effect any minute now. What does it do? I slurred the last part of the sentence. My head started to get foggy. My eyes got heavy. It helps us see what's in your head, of course. I heard the doctor say, right before I fell into a vivid dream state. I was in a hallway of what looked like an old, unkept Victorian house. The green wallpaper was coming off the walls. The furniture looked ragged and dusty, and the paintings looked like antiques. Freaky antiques. But nonetheless, one was of conjoined twin babies. Another was a detailed illustration of the human brain. There were 8 doors, 4 on each side. I opened the first one to the right of me. At first I saw nothing. I walked in, and the door shut right behind me. I tried to open it, but it was locked. I looked around and saw nothing but black, except for a TV with static and a chair right in front of it. I sat in the chair and looked at the static. The TV began to switch the channels, catching glimpses of my childhood on each. I saw my treehouse, my doggy, a stuffed animal I refused to go anywhere without until I lost it in a mall when I was 4. My mom dancing with me in the living room. And it stopped on the memory of when I got lost at the carnival and I almost was abducted. Hey little girl, are you lost? I saw 6-year-old me nodding, with tears all over my face. Why don't you come with me, and I'll help you find your parents? Looking at him through the screen, it was obvious his intentions were not good. My younger self felt someone's hand on my shoulder. She turned around and saw it was someone with uniform. My parents had gone to the Red Cross booth and gave them a photo of me. Hey sweetie, are you Anna Taylor? I nodded and turned to see the man that offered to help, but he was gone. The TV went back to static. I heard a click. I turned to see the door was unlocked and open. I went back into the hallway. I went from door to door, showing the different memories of my life at different stages. I opened door number 6, and as it closed behind me, Sally grabbed me and pushed me against the wall. Stop showing them! Sally, how are you in my dream? This isn't a dream, stupid. They're in your head, and you are giving them exactly what they want. I started to remember the last moments I was conscious. Oh, so they got in. Wait, how are you here then? Are you just a figment of my imagination or something? My voice of reason? What? Fuck no. When they got into my head, they were using a different formula. They realized quickly that that particular vision allowed not only for them to get into my head, but I was able to get into everyone's head, including theirs. I was the only person they used it on, and that's why they try to keep me heavily medicated all the time, but it doesn't work. The TV started to change channels and landed on Nurse Maddox. Sally, do you really want to do this again? You know the consequences. Shit, come on. She grabbed my hand and kicked the door open, and we raced down the hall to the staircase. Where are we going? I asked while trying to keep up. To the basement. Why? Because they don't know how to get through the basement door. Right, that makes perfect sense. The sarcasm was felt by every word. Just trust me. We went through the house and landed at a door. Sally pulled out a key. Where did you find that? It doesn't matter. She unlocked the door and pushed me so hard that I almost fell down the stairs that were on the other side of the door. When we reached the bottom, Sally took out a large breath in relief. Okay, we're safe. Until they decide to wake you up. It was in a dark basement. I can't see you. Sally found a lantern and turned it on. You and Cody need to escape the way you planned, but not in 2 cycles. You need to go as soon as you wake up from this. How do you know about that? I already told you, I'm able to get into everyone's head. I know everything that goes on with everyone. About time, by the way. About time about what? You and Cody. Finally. You know. I was mortified. Don't worry, I'm not a pervert. But seriously, you'll be woken up in no time. Get Cody and go. Stick with plan A. Only go to plan B if they decide to use Frank. What do you mean if they decide to use Frank? You'll know if they do. Good luck, Anna. I'm rooting for you. Thanks, and nice talking to you. With my last words, I felt my eyes opening, and I saw my room's ceiling. I shot up, looked around, hoping to see something. I had no idea what I was looking for, but it wasn't there. I heard a knock on my door. Anna? It was Cody. I ran to the door, opened it, and pulled him in. We need to go now. What? No, not now. Why now? Because Sally told me. Because Sally told you? Do you realize how ridiculous that sounds? Listen, I don't have time to explain. Do you trust me? Cody's eyes searched my face for what I assumed was my sanity. Yeah, of course I do. Great, then let's go. Plan A. I thought we were going with Plan B. No, we'll only use Plan B if they decide to use Frank. What? I don't understand either, but apparently we will if they do. And this was the beginning of the end. It's hard to write this part. It's hard to believe that it actually happened. But here goes. Cody and I peeked our heads out and saw that no one was around. We're clear. Let's go. We bolted down the corridor, turning left, then right, then left again. It was this part of the plan that made all those hallway walks worth it. These halls were second nature to us now, so there was no need to pause or second guess our movements. We made it to the stairwell in no time. We quickly tried to open the door, but it was locked. And simultaneously, the alarm went off. Fuck, Cody shouted. What do we do now? I'm really sorry, guys. We both turned around to see Frank. We turned to look at each other in disbelief. I put my hands up to try to reason with him. Frank, come on, it's us, Annie and Cody. Yeah, Frank, we're your friends. I know, but it's not up to me. Frank lifted his arms to grab us, but quickly put his palms to the side of his head. I felt a tingle in the back of my head. Time for Plan B. It was Sally. I grabbed Cody's hand and ran past Frank. Come on, we have to go to Plan B. We were making our way to our next destination, but saw a few orderlies in the hallway we needed to get to. We quickly hid in one of the rooms close to us. Do you think they saw us? I don't think so. We would hear them coming. We both caught our breath. What do you think happened to Frank? It was Sally. How was it Sally? They got into my head, Cody. But Sally protected me. She's able to enter into anyone's mind. She came to me and stopped them from getting any more information from me. She probably went into Frank's head to stop him from hurting us. One day, you're gonna have to explain all of this to me better. I will. I cracked open the door and saw the orderlies were gone. But Nurse Maddox and the doctor were in their place. They started walking towards us. Shit, be quiet, they're coming. They have to be close. They couldn't have gone far. Definitely not off this floor. Nurse Maddox, what makes you an expert on what these two lovebirds are capable of doing? The doctor even spoke to Nurse Maddox in a condescending tone when alone with her. What are you talking about, Doctor? Are you aware Mrs. Taylor and Mr. Kent's relationship has reached a physical level? No, I was not.
Embarrassment filled her words. Well then, that proves my point that you have no bearings on the current situation, do you? They walked past the room we were hiding in, and continued down the hall. After a few moments, I peeked outside the door. The coast is clear. Ready? Ready. We sped down and took a left at the end of the hallway. We opened the door and ran down the stairs. This was farther than we had ever gone. This turned out to be a problem. Shit, it only goes down to the second floor. We'll have to take our chances, won't we? Cody was right. There was no way I was going back to the third floor. He opened the door and took my hand. Nothing could have prepared us for what was on the second floor. Every room was filled with a patient. Each room had an observation window. We saw one patient tied up to his bed, and it looked like he had been there for a while, without anyone taking care of him. He had a remote in his hand, which I assumed gave him some food that would go down the tube connected to his mouth. I saw tears on his cheeks. Another was a woman whose room was filled with televisions. I only saw static, but I knew she must have seen something more than that because it looked like she ripped her eyes out at some point. She was on her bed, giggling to herself. There was a boy, probably in his early teens, was in his room, pressing a button and receiving some liquid intravenously. Judging by his reaction, it had to be drugs. The next room over was a man tied to a chair, getting electroshocked. It was easy to put two and two together. The boy was shocking the man to get relief. A woman was lying dead in one of the rooms. She has slit her wrists with a piece from the broken mirror over the sink. The patients couldn't see us. If they could, they would probably have asked for our help, but nothing. The windows were probably one-way mirrors. They looked like lab rats, all part of their very own lab experiments. We heard the alarm continuing to ring off in the distance. There didn't seem to be any nurses, techs, orderlies, or doctors on this floor. Probably all up on the third, I thought. Looking around, I was in complete shock. This is... I can't... Maybe we should... No, Anna, we can't. Come on, let's find another set of stairs. Cody wrapped his arm around my waist and guided me down the hallway. I stopped looking in the rooms after I saw a morbidly obese man lying on his bed, dead with his stomach cut open and his insides spilling out. It was too much. I needed to focus. We followed the exit signs to another stairwell. After what felt like an eternity, we reached the bottom of the stairs to the first floor. This is it. Cody couldn't hide his excitement. This should open to the observation part of emergency, if I remember properly. He opened the door to find the floor having the same plan as the second and third. Patients' rooms, only these were empty. Definitely not emergency. What? We went into the closest room with a window. The room was empty with a pile of dirty mattresses stacked on the corner. There's still one more floor. Of course. Rez-de-chaussée. The fucking ground floor. I felt like an idiot. I turned to face the doorway. Okay, one more to go. There was no one on this floor. The room had leftover equipment, chairs and beds. It looked like things hadn't been touched in years. I saw a mouse scurry across the floor. I definitely felt like I was being watched, though. You're almost there, Anna. Keep going. Sally again. We found the main stairs that were next to the elevators. I think these stairs will take us to the entrance. The doors to leave emergency will be to the right of the elevators. I recollected how it looked like when I first was brought in. It felt like ages ago. Then it hit me. I might actually leave this hellhole. The elevator door opened. I looked around to see if there was anything I could use as a weapon, but no luck. Cody put me behind him to be protected. But who's going to protect you? I thought. We braced ourselves as I prepared for the worst. It was Noel. He had blood on his hands and a hospital gown. His face actually looked normal. Much better than he did the last time we saw him. Why are you guys just standing there? Let's go! He pushed right past us and opened the door to the stairs. How did you... Sally. Noel and I smiled at one another as we made it to the bottom of the stairs. Okay, you guys really need to explain this better to me as soon as we're out of here. The door had a sign displaying rez-de-chaussée. This was it. We made it. All three of us were grinning. I had a few tears leave my eyes. Noel opened the door, and Frank was standing there, covered in blood like Noel. He was holding a knife. He stabbed Noel in the chest 4 times, pushing him backwards. Cody and I retreated into the stairwell. Frank left the knife in Noel. He was still standing, his eyes wide open, unable to speak. I'm sorry, guys. Sally wasn't strong enough, Frank stated, walking towards us. Noel fell to the ground at my feet. I reacted quickly. I grabbed the knife out of his chest, lunged at Frank, and slit his throat. Blood was spraying everywhere. Frank grabbed at his throat, choking on blood. I'm sorry, Frank. I had to say it. I knew it wasn't him that killed Noel. But I had to get out of here and stop this shit from happening again to someone else. As Frank hit the floor, Cody took the knife from me, gave me a reassuring smile, threw it away from us, and we left the stairwell. It was a small walk to the emergency doors. There were people on this floor. The same people that were there when I was brought in. They didn't move from where they were. They just stared at us in awe. Complete shock filled all of their faces. It could have been all the blood on us that was causing this reaction, but somehow I knew it wasn't. With our hands held tight, we walked right through the doors. As soon as we passed the threshold, the sunlight hit us. My eyes burned. I covered them with my arm. I turned to Cody. We both started to laugh and cry, hugging each other, jumping in circles. We did it. We fucking did it. I know. I can't believe... In mid-sentence, I felt a hand grab my arm and pull me backwards, back into the Royal Vic. It was dark again. No, I was out! I was screaming and thrashing around. I couldn't see anything. My eyes were filled with tears, my mind filled with anger and confusion. I got out! Cody! He can't hear you, Mrs. Taylor. He's out in the real world now. I looked up. It was a doctor. What do you mean, the real world? You see, Mrs. Taylor, we were never able to penetrate Cody's mind as we did yours. That's why we weren't able to pull him back. I am delighted with all this new information I have, because now I know that once we penetrate a patient's mind, we can always bring them back. Bring back where? Here, the Royal Victoria Hospital, of course. Now we know you can never leave, and we can continue our research for as long as it takes. No, you can't, this can't be. I continued shouting and flailing around. I felt a pinch in the back of my neck, and black surrounded my vision. They keep trying to mess with my head, change the story around, add new people, remove others. But I wrote it all down, and I tell them the true story every time they try to tell me otherwise. I get sent to be experimented on, a lot more, but I don't care. Sally is presently in a locked room, being studied on. She visits me from time to time. Cody is out there somewhere, living a real life. Although I always wonder why he didn't come back for me. Maybe he can't. We don't have to stay only on the 3rd floor anymore, because we can't leave. They said a sense of freedom to move around puts the patients in a better mood. What they really mean is that us lab rats give better results when we think that we're actually human to them. I found a broken window on the 5th floor. During quiet time today, I'm going to take the notebook and throw it out of the window. I know the outside exists. I hope it reaches someone. If you're reading this, I need your help. We need your help. More and more people show up all the time. Please, come save us. This is Kinetic Symphony. If you've enjoyed this narrated story, please subscribe and like the video to help me grow. Thank you.